Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is TJ Legacy, and I am here and your host of the Soapboxx Podcast. Glad to be here again on this Thursday, the hottest show on Thursdays, the most infamous podcast on your streaming services. I'm joined today with my co-host, my man 50 Grand, back after a 1 week hiatus. What's going on, Alan York? What's good? Young Ginger Ale?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. Recently just my birthday just passed on Monday, so new year, new me.
Oh, I'm a bad friend.
No.
I'm a bad friend. I did not even know that.
No, I did that on purpose. It's not on my Facebook. I don't put it on my Instagram. So this is the exclusive that it was my birthday on Monday. So,
I missed it. I say nothing, not a post.
I got a little head shave, so I'm feeling good, man. I got a little whiskey as well, so things may get a little crazy, man. How y'all doing today?
Why I just had a conversation with you about what was it about getting a haircut on set? I knew there was a variable that I was missing. It's because it was your birthday on Monday. You wanted to look fresh, have a nice haircut.
I just wanted to cleanse, a little cleanse. That's it.
And you didn't tell me. You didn't even be like, this.
Hey, you tell me the good stuff for the pod, so I did.
Wow. You know what? Thank you. I'm glad you did that because now everybody knows how bad of a friend I am. I didn't call you. I didn't say happy birthday. I didn't give a post. So this guilt trip that I feel tonight.
I didn't say nothing about that. You exposed yourself.
I did. No, definitely, because I'm in shock. This
is actually, to be fair, it's a personal decision because I really don't like a lot of birthday attention. Oh. Because I feel like, me posting at places and having to deal with 30 replies, I literally stay away from that on purpose.
Yeah, what jerks? What jerks? Because they want to celebrate your life, right? No, what assholes out there because they care about the day that you came into this world. Damn, I feel
happy to be here, man.
I feel really, really shitty.
You shouldn't.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Well, let's also talk about a shitty friend because I couldn't come to Greg's wedding, so we might as well just say that. So let me introduce Greg. Greg, Greg is a good friend of mine. And so I definitely want to have this conversation. As you can see, he's an Eagle fan. Greg, what's going on? How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here, guys. And a happy birthday from one ginger to another ginger ale. My dad joke of the evening to kick us off.
Well, I like that. Did you have any exciting things that happened in your life that, as a friend, I forgot to, hit you up in any milestones in your life? Is there a kid on the way or something like? Did I miss anything?
Not yet, but no. You've been a great friend to me, TJ, and thank you for all of your service.
Great.
All of us need one. So
appreciate it. And now another brother of mine, brother in the movement. You guys have seen him on the podcast before and listened to his insight. My brother Anthony Rogers-Wright, fellow brother. How you doing, man?
So good to see you, TJ. Happy belated birthday, young ginger ale. Good to meet you, Gregory. Just making it do what it do here in Omaha, Nebraska, where there's some oppressive heat today, but it is about to get hotter, I think, because you invited me on this show. So, I got hydrated before I came on, just to let you know. So I'm ready for the long.
You said you're in Omaha right now?
Yeah. I've been here since COVID hit. Home is normally Seattle. But it started popping off there. Like that was one of the first locations when it was like really, really popping off. And then just because of like my job where I have to like meet with like government officials and whatnot, I just wanted to be responsible. So, and plus, I have like access to direct healthcare like out here. My neighbor is a doctor. So it just it's strategic to be out here for now.
Oh, okay. Definitely, man. I didn't know that. I saw you were in Minnesota when that popped off as well.
Oh yeah, because I was so close. You know what I mean? Like I it's like a 6-hour drive. So I had to go up there and show solidarity with our people and all people, as a matter of fact, not just Black folk, but like that was a beautiful thing. We had white sisters and brothers out in the streets with us, people of all races and ethnicities, gender identities, etc. Everybody came together to bear witness to that atrocity, that lynching that we all saw. That was really dope to be there.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I definitely appreciate it. Anytime I could get you on and your insight. Actually, all of you who are on this podcast, I reach out to in confidence to, talk about whether it's stuff that is personal or what's going on within social justice or even in the corporate America world. Jess, can you hear us? I don't know if she's on, so Jess will pop in whenever she's ready. I didn't think she was gonna be here today, but we're graced with her presence. Look, let's get started with some of the news that's hit this week before we really talk about. I know we want to talk about DeSean Jackson and the Philadelphia Eagles, his comments, but I'm going to start it off. Or Alan, you want to kick it off with the? Give me 1 second here. Finding this stuff with Naya Rivera. What's going on with her, to the best of your recollection?
Well, wow. Well, first off, prayers up to Naya Rivera. I'm gonna make this short because we don't really know too much. As of right now, we're recording on Thursday. She was reported missing as of yesterday, Wednesday evening. Her child was found in a boat. The only thing that we know is that she rented a boat. She went out on a lake with her child. The child was found in the boat without her. So, of course, due to the fact that when this happened, it was the evening time, they are, quote unquote, presuming her dead, just because they haven't found a body yet. And of course, you cannot dive and search for a body in a lake at night. So, of course, the search was very short-lived as far as yesterday is concerned, but today they are continuing that search. As of right now, as far as the time that we're recording, they haven't found her as of yet. We can definitely pray for a miracle. So hopefully she is found safe and sound. We're going to pray for her. We're going to pray for the kids. So as of right now, like I said, I don't want to say anything permanent. I believe in words. So just going to lift her up in prayer and hopefully she'll return safe and sound. And, regardless, we're going to definitely pray for the kid as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the story broke, I was like, it's weird because, like you said, we don't have all the details, and I didn't know if she was in a lake with other people or just her child. But yeah, I saw that Big Sean had tweeted something, the same thing with his sentiment saying, prayers up for her. I know they had a nasty breakup. So, but life is precious, man. Life. You never know, and especially with the tragedy of Kobe, you just never know. I didn't know she played in all those roles. You were telling me offline that she was in a lot of other different shows. Yeah, I only remember her from Glee, which I didn't really watch Glee.
Yeah, and that's actually a conversation I also want to bleed into. But yeah, some of the roles that she played into, she was in the Bernie Mac show for a little bit, but she was young when she
remember her in the Bernie Mac show.
She was in Family Matters. In Family Matters, she played Richie Rich's girlfriend. So she was super young, and so she has been in Hollywood ever since ever since a child. She also had a small role in Sister at one point. So she's been making her rounds even before Glee. She's a seasoned veteran. Now, what I want to ask you guys something because this is I know TJ, you are a licensed journalist, independent journalist. Earlier today there was a little bit of I guess controversy online because when Breakfast Club mentioned her name, they automatically affiliated her with being the ex-fiance of Big Sean. So it was because, Naya Rivera, who most know being the ex-fiance, actor, ex-fiance of Big Sean, was found missing XYZ. Do you feel that, how distasteful do you feel that it is, if you believe it's distasteful, or do you feel like, depending on the space that the demographic is, they put that just to have a light bulb moment, like, okay, where would I know this woman from? Because I'll say for me personally, I've never watched Glee. So I didn't know, the only reason I knew she was on Glee is because I remember Big Sean talking about it. And as far as her older roles, I'm just finding out about all of this today. So I guess I can kind of understand why outlets would take that route if you're not tapped into a certain demographic. But I can definitely understand how it's extremely distasteful, especially just the whole ecosystem of you know, I guess we can say a part of misogyny where we only link a woman to a popular male figure. But how do you feel about that, just as a journalist?
Me personally, let me get Jess's thoughts on it. But me personally, as far as journalism, like, I think it's more of what you alluded to. They're trying to link her to something where people would say, "Oh, okay, that's how I'll know her." So, you know, I probably would have said former Glee star rather than, you know, Big Sean's girlfriend, because that then has the connotation of a woman being someone else's property type of thing. But I would have, but I think with them, because it's an urban-based radio show, and with hip hop, that's why they made that correlation. Like, oh, she used to date Big Sean, because they know that their market probably is not going to be. They're going to be like, Glee, who? But it's the best way for them to know automatically who she is and be able to make the correlation. But I want to get Jess. Jess, can you hear me?
Yeah. So I agree with you.
Hi, Jess. How you doing?
Hey,
How's everybody?
How are you? How's everybody?
We have Greg and Anthony, everybody on here. I know Jess is via phone today, right?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Jess is via Casper. Where's your face?
I know I'm Casper today, guys. Sorry.
Oh, it doesn't even show your picture on this time.
It's probably because I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. No worries. We know what you look. We'll just put a favor. We'll put the Easy picture with you with the red hat in its place. Soapbox Nation listeners know exactly what we're talking about. But anyway, yes, go ahead with your take on Naya Rivera.
So yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. As far as like correlation and their platform, I do feel like they should have give her introduce her by saying what her credentials are first. Like, yeah, she's a former Glee star, whether people know that or not, but just like give her credit and then correlate it to Big Sean, like, so people can understand it. I didn't hear the interview, or I didn't hear the when the Breakfast Club said it. Yeah, I didn't hear it. But if that was the way they introduced her, that is distasteful. And
you really believe so?
Yeah, because I feel like because like I get it, like I get that that's how they feel like their audience will know who she is, but you still should acknowledge what she does first and then correlate it. Oh, and like for those of you who may not know, she also dated Big Sean, because what her work is bigger than her relationship or her previous relationship. So yeah, I think if that was the way they introduced her, just a little bit.
Yeah, just to clarify, it wasn't an introduction on an interview. It was a tweet that they put out where they was describing her missing.
So yeah.
It since has been updated to now where it says, you know, actress, singer, mother.
That's what they should have did first.
Yeah. So you know, bullying works.
There's a lot of characters on Twitter. They could have fit that in there first. Just saying.
Yeah. I understand. I guess I was saying from the perspective where I don't think it was necessarily done as like a zinger or being malicious, but but I could see how and I think that's a good segue for what this show is about, because as far as intentions, right? Like people say or do things or post things, and we have to understand their intentions prior to have some context of what they're actually doing. So it really goes in line with what we're talking about as we segue into some of these other stories. One other story I want to talk about, and I'm going to get Greg and Anthony on this one, is the story of Amy Cooper, where they're calling her the Central Park Karen. Now, she has been charged, and right now, with the investigation, she's been charged with that harassment, or what I feel like is racially targeting, or making a false call, saying that she was being harassed by Christian Cooper, ironically, who is a black male in Central Park. But the story broke this week that said he refuses to cooperate with the prosecution of Amy Cooper. So I wanted to go to Anthony first. What do you think about his decision not to cooperate with the prosecution?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is obviously a very magnanimous brother. Me personally, if I was the DA of New York, I would have charged her with attempted murder. That's just me. We know that throughout.
Go deeper with that. Why do you think she would?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was just about to, brother. Like the history of this nation of stolen lands has shown us that, white women who are maleficent or, mendacious have literally ended the lives of Black men, have ended the existence of entire cities. And we're obviously talking about what happened in Rosewood, in your home state, TJ, in Florida, obviously what happened out in Tulsa and Black Wall Street. The Eleanor Struben case that made Thurgood Marshall famous. He got that brother off. But she went outside of her marriage with a Black man, didn't want to admit it, and said that he raped her. So when she picked up that phone, whether she was conscious of it or not, we know for a fact that when Black men have interactions with police, it is a 50-50 situation, literally, right? And that's not hyperbolic, right? I mean, just go down the list. We don't need to go down the list. And of course, the same thing goes for our Black queens. So it was attempted murder, but this brother decided to be magnanimous. It's not the decision that I would make, because I think that, yes, we don't want to ruin anybody's life, but let's be honest. It wouldn't be the same thing as if you went to a jail for that, or young Ginger Ale went to jail for that. We'd have to sign check a box off. Our lives would be done for good, right? But then you got the people like the Brock Turners in the world who raped a woman. The judge said, I don't want to ruin his life, so when he only served 3 months. Brock likely will be fine, will be able to get a job. So I think the same thing could have happened with this sister. That said, I would have liked to have seen him gone a little bit step further. If you're not going to cooperate with the law, and that's real, because we're in this era of talking about defunding and disbanding the police. We're all abolitionists here, but there still needs to be some transformative and reformative justice. And that's like, my only thing is that if you're going to say, like, I'm not going to cooperate with the DA, then take it upon yourself, to play a role in that restorative justice, because there has to be accountability for this, because this is not just a isolated incident. It is a larger symptom of the larger disease of white supremacy. And it's Barbecue Becky, Cornerstone Karen, the list goes on and on and on and on. And hopefully this can be still used as an example to deter white people, regardless of their gender identity, for resorting to the police, and understanding that when you do that, you are putting the lives of Black people, brown people, and indigenous people in absolute danger. So again, I respect the brother's decision. It's his life. And also it could just be traumatic. Why would any brother necessarily want to cooperate with a law enforcement and a legal system that has been stacked against them for 400 years and counting? So there could be some of that, and the brother just doesn't want to deal with it. That's cool. But there needs to be accountability. There needs to be transformative and restorative justice. So that's my initial thoughts on it.
What do you think? What do you think, Greg? You think that he should cooperate and she should be charged? Do you think where do you stand on it?
I do, and for the real reason of this, I am concerned that if he doesn't cooperate, she genuinely won't learn what she did wrong. And that's my thing is, I don't think it's second nature for white people to think, what you just said, Anthony, about that she should be tried essentially for attempted murder. And I agree with you on that. And I don't think it's second nature for us, though, to think that way as white people who haven't experienced that. And I think that for her to have to sit in a courtroom and have to actually hear those words, of what she almost put someone through, or what she could have, and the threat that she presented, I'm afraid that without his cooperation, without this going a step further, I'm worried she won't learn her lesson. And, we can hope that other people have learned from that. But to be honest, the irrationalness that she presented is kind of disturbing. And if she doesn't learn her lesson, I'm worried about her being out there on the streets and what's next. A lot of these incidents are becoming incidents because they're caught on camera. But what is this lady on a Friday night? Like, do you really want to be walking down a street and walk past her the wrong way while she's walking home from an evening, maybe had a glass of wine? Like, what the heck does she say then? And that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, Alan, you're in New York. What are your thoughts on the situation, but what's the word on the street? How are people are taking it in the community?
Wow. To be quite honest with you, people are being really, really hard on
Christian Cooper. Mm-hmm.
They're being really, really hard on him. There's a lot of words, a lot of C words flying around, a lot of people feeling like he let down the community. And I think that a lot of our community is going too hard on him personally because of his decision. Because at the end of the day, even though I know that we are looking at this in a broad scope, we are looking at this as an example to be set, but he's still a human. Unfortunately, he didn't bargain for all of this notoriety that he's gotten within the last 2 months. Yeah. Fame is not fun. Being a public figure is not fun, especially when you're thrusted in that spotlight. And I'm sure that he would prefer to be done with it. So yes, even though I heard him say that, it's like, we've done enough at this point. He doesn't want to pile it on because he's probably looking at himself in the mirror like he can't even go outside and get a coffee without people coming up to him and talking about this. And for her, we would assume it's way worse because she's actually experiencing the vitriol. Her life, I would assume, would never be the same again. Of course, there's going to be communities that do coddle her, and there be a system that may hire her again. But just life as she knows it will not be the same again on a public level, which I think is almost one of the ultimate prices that you can pay when you can't even walk your home streets without not knowing what's going on because of your image. Also, I look at it in a way to where it's like, okay, one, yes, this brother doesn't want to these cases don't come and go. We're talking about someone probably having to go to court for the next 6 months, having to deal with the NYPD for the next 6 months. We know how police departments treat people who are looking for justice, especially against racists, because the system sees themselves in that racist. We see that the brother who filmed Eric Gardner getting murdered suffered hell for the next 4 or 5 years. He just got out of prison. So I can understand why he doesn't want to deal with that. In addition, I think that it may be a little bit different if the punishment were going to be severe. But what the DA is charging her with is just falsely reporting. And we're talking about the maximum sentence that someone can get for that is a year in jail. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen. So we're talking about him going through this whole process, which is probably going to include lawyer fees. She's not the type of person that looks like she's going to back down. She's going to lawyer up. She's going to defame this man's name for the next 6 months and offer what? For her to pay a fine, do community service. I think in this case, the risk may not be worth the reward. Now, as the brother Anthony was saying, I do think that since he's been thrust in his position, it is a little bit of his obligation to kind of be on the front lines of figuring out what's the next step for deterioration. I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but Mr. Cuomo has proposed the Anthony Cooper law. So essentially what that would do is make calls like this a hate crime.
You mean Amy Cooper? Amy Cooper,
yes.
Yeah, Amy Cooper. Yeah.
So if that were to be put in place, calls like this will become a hate crime. Now, hate crimes carry a little bit of a hefty more sentence, and I think that he should get involved in making sure things like that happen so it can move forward to deter other people in the future. But to go through all that, like I said, to deal with a system that you know is not on your side, for her to get a fine, I definitely understand him in that sense.
Yeah. I think, my take was, I think, and Anthony, you could probably attest to this, like every Black person that experiences racism is not a social justice warrior. Like they're not ready for that fight. Like you got to be built for it. So in that regard, I kind of understand like, okay, he doesn't want to go. He doesn't have that follow through in him. Let's be honest. He did not post this video. I believe it was his sister that posted the video that he actually recorded. So he didn't want any of the smoke at all, or any of the fame or notoriety, or even to, get likes or anything like that. He didn't want that. But I think when you are in the social justice space or thrust into it, you no longer represent yourself. You are almost like a proxy for all of African Americans who this may affect down the road. And I think somebody needs to pull him aside and make him understand that, because if there's no consequence, right, of making her go through the process, the fear is among Black Americans is that if this happens again, they're going to feel like, oh, we can continue to do this because they're going to just say it's okay and drop the ball. So right now across the country, when it comes to flagrant behavior and all these Karens or Kevins or whatever we're calling them this week, like, we're trying to create deterrence to be like, okay, you touch the hot stove, you get it, your hand gets burned automatically. So I really hope that he reconsiders. However, let's be honest, they don't need him to cooperate in order for them to prosecute.
All the evidence they need, they got all of it, right?
Yeah, they have everything they need. So this pressure that they're putting on him to say, oh, he's not cooperating, putting it in the paper, that's almost like a trick bag. That's them looking for an excuse for a way out to say, well, we didn't have a cooperative witness and there's nothing we can do, so we just had to let her go. So that's why we need him to stand. And I think, and I'm learning this now, even in the modern day civil rights movement, like, I'm learning a lot more about grace. Like, I don't care about Amy Cooper at all, not as a person, as a label, or a motherfucking crew. Like, I do not care about anything about her. But when it comes to him, even though he may not think like me, we gotta take a pause. Like, I think cancel culture, like, we really gotta take a pause when it comes to that, because we have to at least have people to reach out to understand, to get into his mindset, but also make him understand the magnitude of the moment. And I don't think we're doing that in this space enough, where we're reaching out to people. It's almost like, if you're not doing what the masses want you to do, well, then you're a sucker, you're a coon, you're this, you're that. You know what I'm saying? And instead of saying, okay, look from his point of view, and I'm learning that a lot more in recently, that especially when it comes to conversations about, allies and these type of things, because I used to have a staunch, stance on that. Like, we don't have any allies. We don't have, but, so I'm still growing too. And that's why I say, when the movement is then, now, and forever, like, you're constantly evolving and your positions are evolving as you're educating you're further educating yourself. So I hope that he follows through with the process. I didn't go as deep and think that it should have been attempted murder. I actually kind of dig that, but I understand the historical context of it. But I hope that she has some sort of is held accountable, because just shaming folks who have a heart like that, who have this suspected white supremacist heart, to have that scream, like, that scream is, Emmett Till. That scream is like across the years of the civil rights movement that has been responsible for many lynchings and house burnings and towns burnings. Like, that scream and that screech, like, she knew within her privilege, like, I could weaponize law enforcement. And so there needs to be a deterrent. There needs to be her being held accountable, so that other folks know, hey, when you continuously try to weaponize law enforcement, then there's going to be consequences. And I believe I forget which state it was, they're trying to develop a Karen Act for people who are trying to make false reports. I don't know if you guys heard.
It's in the books. It's Oregon of all.
Oregon is doing it. Yeah. So it became a law already.
Yes, it became a law. There, like, if you for false 911 calls, I believe Oregon was the first and remains the only state. Don't take that to the bank, but I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah. So those are the things that I definitely wanted people to look at, where when you're in that social justice space, that it's bigger than you. But some people just aren't with that spotlight. So, in other news, real quick before we get to the DeSean Jackson stuff, we have two more stories. One, we have Trump is clapping back on the TikTok. Is Jess? Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Did you want to chime in? It's hard for me to see on the thing, but I got you. Did you want to chime in on that story, and then you wanted to talk about the TikTok ban?
Chime in on the story that we were just talking about.
Did you have anything with Amy Cooper?
Oh yeah, no, I was basically just saying, like, I just feel like, and this is just my opinion, that the Black community probably just feels like a sense of betrayal because, this was the time to kind of set an example to show like this isn't okay and there needs to be consequences when stuff like this happens, because it happens way too often. But at the same time, like, we shouldn't be so hard on him because this is his decision. This is what he wants to do. Like, everyone's always trying to cancel somebody. And I feel like we need to just, be understanding, but I can see why it's hard not to be at the same time. Yeah,
there will be a time where the masses tries to cancel me, and we will hold our resolve and say, F that. We're not canceling him. So, but I mean, but that's the thing, is that everyone, you have to understand, it's like everybody's going to have their turn. There's going to be people that no one is going to say the right things and do the right things or post the right things all the time. I'm sure I offend people all the time, whether I care or whether I know it or not. So, but when it comes to weaponizing law enforcement agents, people are hypersensitive to that. So, but hey, switching gears, Jess, you want to hit the TikTok, or you want me to set it up for you?
I mean, whatever you want. Basically, Trump is just mad. Like, he always mad.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's trying to cancel TikTok because, if you guys don't know, he had a rally. I feel like it was in Tulsa, right? Well, Tulsa, I believe so.
Yes, it was Tulsa, yes.
Yeah, and what happened was some TikTokers, they all started a trend where they were going to act like they were purchasing, or they purchased, or not purchased because it's free. They signed up to go to his rally, but they didn't plan to attend. So his seats were like basically half empty there because a lot of people actually jumped onto this trend. So now he's feeling some type of way. Yeah. And he wants to cancel TikTok.
Yeah, because TikTok is originated in China. So these are all Jesse's people on TikTok. So, Greg, what do you think? Should Trump have the power to cancel TikTok?
Cancel TikTok. Let's cancel.
You don't like it?
No, TikTok is owned by the Chinese government. They have access to everyone's phones, and right now there are way too many people in our country that are on TikTok that gives China access to our data, what we're talking about, what we're doing. They have so many privacy issues in China. They're having their own issues in Hong Kong. They are a fucking mess. Can I say that?
Yes. Oh, this is Soapboxx. Please encourage.
Ban TikTok. All of those annoying teenage influencers now will have to get real jobs. Instagram Reels is going to come out. They're already coming out in India, because India banned TikTok. So Instagram Reels now just debuted in India. They're keep American jobs, right? With Facebook and Instagram, because we trust them so much, of course. And I honestly, though, TikTok needs to go. I think it's bad news when there's businesses in China that are going international, and the Chinese government's buying into those businesses for access to the data. You're asking for trouble. There's not enough privacy laws there. But
that's what social media in general, not just TikTok. Facebook is the same thing. There's lack of privacy. They listen into everything that you're talking about.
The U.S. government isn't, though. The Chinese government has access to that data. Mark Zuckerberg has access to that data, and the U.S. government is able to hold him accountable for that. There is nobody holding China accountable for the data they're taking from your phone, not even when you're on the app, even when you're off the app and you're driving around and where you're going. I mean, that's a bad government entity to have control of your data.
Yikes.
Yeah, I can't march for TikTok, but if they try to cancel OnlyFans, then I will be out on the street marching.
I'm mad you said that.
I'm just being honest with you. If they cancel OnlyFans, there's gonna be a lot of people out of work. and I'm trying to, support some folks through college. So I will be extremely upset that my investment has gone down the drain. Alan, what do you think, Anthony? What should they cancel TikTok?
And the whole idea of like China stealing data from us. I mean, China doesn't ever have to fire a weapon at this country to sink it. You know what I'm saying? Like we dug that hole for ourselves a long time ago when we subjected ourselves and got on our knees and prayed to Bill Clinton's neoliberal orthodoxy that allowed us to basically, China just like owns our debt. During the 2008 collapse, financial collapse, if China would have like gotten rid of all their stocks of Fannie and Freddie, like that would have been the end of the U.S. economy. So our data is like the least of my concern. I mean, yeah, I'm just as worried about the United States government stealing my data. I mean, they're listening right now because of TJ's radicalism and whatnot. So, from that.
And they're also listening in Portugal and the UK on the Soapboxx Podcast.
Know what I mean? Like, I'm saying, so like, that's not like what worries me. I mean, but I just think it was like gangster that a bunch of teenagers just essentially rolled Donald Trump's rally. That was like very, very gangster. It was very creative, and it's just really good to see like young people, right? Like a lot of people like to say like young people. If you're 30, you're not necessarily a young person. This is 16, and they got into the fight. So isn't that what we want to see? Is that like we always challenge our young folk to get more civically engaged? They did. Zuckerberg is no peach. No doubt. The amount of misinformation that he allows to go on his platform. He's not like the CEO of Twitter that is now doing fact checking and even like deleted some of Trump's tweets. So I'm all for what the kids did. I guess I just don't know enough about TikTok because I'm an old timer now. I guess Twitter, Facebook, and Zoom. I consider myself a technological aficionado. You're gonna throw another platform at me now, but let's focus on TikTok. Much props to the young people.
Yeah, Jess, what would you how will you dance now that TikTok is going to be banned? Like, what's the next step for your social media empire?
That's real funny. I don't even use TikTok like that, DJ. That's funny though. That's funny.
I'm just fucking with you. Alan, you are what do you think about this whole TikTok business?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't use do you have a TikTok?
I had a TikTok.
Wow.
And the only thing I posted on there was like some of my music videos, and then I deleted it because it's just too much choreography. But I'm on.
I was just about to say you see, it's just like it's so trendy. Yeah, like I could never. Yeah,
I'm not moving my body like a snake, man. Not at this age. But I'm on both sides. I definitely feel like there's way too much information being transmitted, and there's not a lot of firewall, and the level of security or intentional lack of security that TikTok has that I've been reading up on, I definitely think is problematic. But as Anthony said, I really do appreciate the youth doing activism in their way, because that's what it is. Every generation has to activate themselves and invigorate themselves and find their participation lane. And I thought it's been really great the way that they've been spreading information, sharing videos. They're having like little PowerPoint slides on TikTok where they're doing these little history lessons. I think it's amazing that they're doing that. So we just got to get the youth to just move to Thriller or another app. So I see the pros and I see the cons.
Is that a real app?
Yeah, Thriller is a real app. Yeah,
Thriller.
It's another one of those dancey type of things. It's
I sounded real old. Look at me. Is that a real app?
Yeah, it was out before, or should I say, it kind of blew up a little bit before TikTok, but it is a similar platform. So a lot of youth are using that as well.
Why don't they just get one? I don't understand this. Why don't we just have one app that does all of these things? Like, doesn't Instagram have the capability of doing that?
Stop it, old man. Stop being old.
I know, like,
because it's not well. Because there was also something where TikTok was pretty much giving out engagement, right? And so anytime you're giving out engagement to teens or businesses that are looking to be seen, and they see those numbers skyrocket, they're gonna come back to the app. So that's another hack that TikTok is doing to keep people on their platform. They know they're very smart. They know what they're doing. So we just gotta figure out another way.
All I know is if China steals my information, they're not going to get very far. They're going to go across the street. Like that's about as far as they're going to get with this information. Even though I would be very upset if anything happened to our Soapboxx platforms at all. So, look, moving on. I real quick wanted to touch on this. New York City and Tallahassee murals. I know Javonni is not here. Alan, there's a new mural that got painted today. Al Sharpton was out there with Mayor de Blasio, right? In front of Trump Towers. They have a new mural.
Yeah, literally right in front of Trump Towers.
Which is petty. It's petty, but I like it. I can dig it. I'm
definitely a fan of the petty. You know, honestly, at this point, and it's been like this for a couple of years, people just go in front of the Trump Towers to like flick it off and shit. Like,
really?
Yeah. We're just in front of the buildings, like, and then taking pictures and all that. So this will definitely add to the aesthetic. Trump is really not there too much anymore. It'll be cooler once hopefully he gets out of office and he has to go back to that building and see that shit at the top floor of his suite. But you know, we're seeing murals going up across the country. Shout out to the artists. I think it's cool that the cities are getting involved and sponsoring these things, because anytime I see something like that, I see new upcoming artists getting money in their pocket. And
go ahead, Jess.
Did you guys see the video of the lady that was painting the sign black? I forgot where she was, and she was like trying to paint over it.
That was Martinez, California. They just charged them. They just charged them. And I want to say something to that, because it was really eerie. Like no police were called, you know, and there was this indigenous sister who was stepping up for Black folk. And you know, a good friend of mine, one of the most powerful indigenous women I know, her name is Tara Hauska. She's my sister. You know, we're seeing like all of this movement going on right now with the removal of traumatizing and colonizing monuments of Columbus. You got the team from Washington talking about changing their name. You got the team from Cleveland talking about changing their name. And what my sister Tara said was, "Thank you, George Floyd." You know what I'm saying? Thank you, George Floyd, for sparking this discussion. And to see that indigenous sister in the street confronting these two white people, like ready straight up to like take Karen on physically, like really like moved me. You know what I'm saying? Because this indigenous sister was like, I'm showing solidarity with African people.
I want to know what her plan was though. Like she had black paint, but then she was painting over. Like I don't understand. Like what was the like? Was she gonna do all the letters? Like
I guess so.
Like I don't get it. What was her?
White supremacy can turn you into the Hulk, yo. Apparently, like I mean, you know, she was focused. You know what I'm saying?
Did
like,
she come from a meeting and they like revved her up and she was like, "All right, bet I'm gonna be the one to grab the paint."
But the crazy thing was she was literally just outlining the letters. So all you're really doing at that point is just changing the colors of the message. I don't think she really thought that out.
I don't think she got it. That's why I was like.
And the favorite thing is what, like her husband, whoever he was outside with the camera phone, like watching his wife do all this racist labor in 90-degree heat. Like, ooh, go get him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I think the larger takeaway from that though is that like right now, you know, the neoliberal Democratic Party and many of us are so focused on defeating Trump, and what we need to really be focused on is defeating Trumpism. You know what I'm saying? Like Trump is just a symptom of Trumpism. Never forget that there were people that voted for him. There are people who still support him, and that is Trumpism. And Trumpism included some of the things that Karen and Chad were saying, like there aren't kids locked up in chains or in cages, rather, right? That there isn't police brutality. That like if you don't want to get into a hassle with police, don't resist arrest. Like Philando Castile was resisting arrest. Like George Floyd was resisting arrest. Breonna Taylor was resisting arrest. So there is this mentality, this total counterculture that isn't just a divorce from morality, but just a divorce from reality, and that is Trumpism. Trumpism is built on the three pillars that basically built this nation of stolen lands: white supremacy, patriarchy, and colonization. And that was the takeaway, because there are a lot of people who think that way. Same thing with COVID. You got you know, some of these Trumpers saying, "Oh, if Biden gets elected, watch, there'll be a vaccine for COVID," you know, just like that. So I mean, like people have to understand that between that, what just happened in my hometown in Seattle with Summer, who got struck and killed by a white supremacist when she was a white woman, a white gender non-conforming person standing with Black people on the freeway, got struck and killed by a car. We had another incident in Indiana. We had another incident in Indiana. So like people have to understand that we are in a war right now. We are definitely in a culture war, and allies and Black, brown, and indigenous people and their allies need to really watch themselves, which is why I'm just going to bring this up, because the sexiest thing that I saw over 4th of July weekend was these brothers and sisters in the ATL, who marched to the Stone Mountain Confederate statue. I don't know if you saw, it was like 100 to 200 deep, all dressed in Black with their AK-47s out.
Yeah, the militia,
the Not Fucking Around Coalition. And so we all need to watch ourselves. As my brother Marcus Farrell says, we got to embrace the click-clack culture to protect ourselves right now, because these folks are out on the prowl. As we get closer to the election, it's going to get even more tense. So sisters, brothers, allies, accomplices, watch your back and watch your people's back, because that's how we really show them. Because what's scaring the shit out of them right now is seeing white people in the streets with Black people, white people, not expressing sympathy, but empathy of just this is enough, no more. And that's what scares them, because the whole thing that has kept this capitalist apparatus going was when they gave poor white folk what's E.B. Du Bois and David Rodiger refers to as the wages of whiteness. And that whiteness just gave them a little bit up, you know what I'm saying? And now that's being obliterated, and white supremacists can, the thing that they hate more, just like you and I, TJ, right? We don't like the petite bourgeois Negro bootlickers. We almost hate them more than the white supremacists. And the white supremacists hate people like Gregory more than Black people, because they're going to call him a race traitor. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be cognizant, and we got to be alert.
No doubt. And I think that's a great segue into the conversation that we were going to have as far as, okay, so the controversy was DeSean Jackson, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles, got on his social media and he posted a post. I was going to share the post so everyone could see and read what it said. However, I'm afraid that if I did that, I'm risking getting flagged for hate speech or something when it comes to social media. So I'm gonna switch it over to you, Greg, and I want to know what your initial reaction was to DeSean Watson. I knew I was gonna do that. DeSean Jackson's Twitter, his Instagram post, and in your words, why is it offensive to someone in the Jewish community, or overall, why would it be offensive? So I'm gonna give you a platform to speak your piece.
No, I appreciate it. So I woke up that morning and, I follow a bunch of my Eagles players on social media, and it really, it brought concern immediately. The first one was because anytime you're quoting Hitler, that's the instant, X mark, right? There's, I don't know how much worse of a person you can quote. It wasn't even a real Hitler quote, which is really what came the bigger concern, that there's just an education gap somewhere. And there's a lot of bastardization of different religions, Judaism being one of them. I mean, I know people that are Jewish and very religious and bastardize what the religion means just as much as Islam and Christianity. And I think there's a bastardization of cultures also. And I think one of the bastardizations of Judaism, of the Black community, is a lot of this preaching that, Jews specifically are holding down the Black community, which is really, it's something stirred up by white supremacists to split communities that really have a history of working together. And, once I took some time to digest my feelings on it, I've done a lot of research recently on the relationship between the Black and Jewish communities in America. And it's very interesting because you have the Black community that was treated abysmally in this country. And then you have Jews that are treated abysmally everywhere else. And there is a history of Jews and Blacks starting off working together to help the overall community. And then there's a period of time where the Jewish community stereotypically kind of faded into the middle and upper class. And in a sense, because there are a large community of Jews that are white, get kind of blended into that white community and become just as much of an issue as everybody else. And when it comes into that, and white supremacists realize that there's a history of Jews helping the Black community in America and being a part of that fight, and they want to stop that, and B, take down Jews as well, they start these narratives that have since taken off, because there are preachers like Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam that has really taken a strong approach to calling Jews termites, saying what Hitler did was right and great. And honestly, I don't give a shit what background, what race, what religion you come from. If you look at what was done during the Holocaust, and you can say World War II as a whole, because I'm not going to let the U.S. get away with, escaping by on what we did to Japanese people in this country. When you do those things, I don't care who you are. How can you say that any of that's okay? When you say that the Jews, went and paid for the Holocaust to happen, and there's Holocaust deniers, and I just discredit everything you say at that point. And that's a large.
These are things that Louis Farrakhan has said.
Oh, 100%. These are direct quotes. He said he's not an anti-Semite, he's an anti-termite, and that we need to get rid of the Jews. And on the far right side, they can't get away with it either, because they make up this bullshit conspiracy theories about George Soros. Does a guy donate to political campaigns? 100%. Is he leading the New World Order? Get the fuck out of here. And that's the issue. Is I know we've had private conversations before where there's a lot of positive, quote unquote, positive stereotypes about the Jewish community being well off, or, running the country and the media. And a lot of people look at that as a positive, and it's not, because there's a lot of hardworking people that doesn't work for. There's a lot of pain and suffering in years. I mean, I know that people in the Black community can say this as well, but if you take a 50-year window and you go back in time, anywhere in this world, it is not a positive environment for Jews either. There's slavery, there's oppression, there's being killed, there's genocide. And that's the problem, is I think that we've gotten to a point in America, at least, where it's very tit for tat, right? Like Black Lives Matter, then all lives matter, right? And it's a whole bunch of horseshit. But there also needs to be a place of like understanding, what is and what's not, oppressive, offensive to other religions and cultures and race. I mean, immediately everyone's first reaction is, oh, well, I'm not racist. But being religious isn't a race. It's a religion. There can be white Jews, Black Jews, Asian Jews, Italian Jews, Spanish Jews, Jews from all over, and all different belief systems, because there's Orthodox Jews, there's Reformed Jews, conservative. So it's just an ignorant comment as a whole. I have definitely backed off of, he should be fired. I think there's an education that needs to be had with across the country, what anti-Semitism is, where it stems from. There's a lot of times that people in the white community, especially this past month, have realized, I didn't know this comment was racist. I didn't know this object or this monument was racist. I'm not talking about Confederate statues. That shit's racist. I'm talking about just historical things or sayings that they're realizing and learning the historical context behind. And whether it was just ignorance or not listening or what before, the fact of the matter is they're learning that now. And I think that same thing needs to be said. I remember we were even talking before the show, and you're like, am I able to say that this person's a Jew? And I said, it depends on how you say it. And it's one of those things where that context just needs to be had of, you don't say this, you don't say that. You don't quote Hitler. That's probably the number one thing.
I think that's a universal. I think we could start there. In the negotiations, we could start with Hitler. Well, what I want to do is I want to play DeSean Jackson's apology. I want to get to you, Greg, to find out what your reaction was to his apology, and then I'm gonna give you the floor, Anthony. So give me 1 second, yo.
Cool.
Oops, here we go. Sorry about that.
I've been getting a lot of backlash and feedback from an Instagram post that I put on my Instagram story. I just want to, first off, extend an apology on the behalf of me and what I stand for, because I'm one that's fair, and I never want to put any race down or any people down. And my post was definitely not intended for anybody of any race to feel any type of way, especially the Jewish community. When I posted what I posted, I definitely didn't mean it to the extent that you guys took it, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm, very apologetic, and I just want you guys to understand that it never was intended to be, to put any race down or any religion down. I post things on my story all the time, and I just probably should have never posted anything that Hitler did, because Hitler was a bad person, and I know that. And I was just trying to uplift, African Americans and slavery, and just enlighten my people. So on behalf of myself, I just want to let you guys know I apologize. I didn't intend, any harm or any hatred towards any people. I'm for one, I'm for love, and I extend it every day. People that know me know I have no hatred in my heart, and I never try to, put another religion down to uplift my religion or my race. So, from the bottom of my heart, I just want you guys to understand that, and it's coming from me and my feelings, and I just hopefully everybody respects my platform, my opinion, to try to just enlighten my people, and just let everybody know that there's no hatred involved. So I hope you guys understand that and realize.
All right. So Greg, I'm gonna shoot straight to you. What when you hear that, apology accepted or what?
Was that the song "It's Too Late to Apologize" in the background? I don't know.
I don't know. It wasn't my video. I pulled it from a YouTube clip. I have no idea. But if that's the case, then
here's the thing. I won't vilify him. I won't call for his job anymore. I don't accept the apology as of right now. And the reason is that's a very ignorant apology video. He's talking about enlightening his people. He's giving bullshit quotes out from hateful people. He still doesn't understand the difference between a religion and a race. It's like half of it was written by his agent and his PR person, and the other half of it he just kind of went off on. But with that being said, it was an ignorant apology. That means that there's room to learn. That means that there's room for him to talk and get perspectives and understand these. Now, it's hard. I think there's an intricate relationship where there's a lot of Black players and a lot of white, and specifically white Jewish owners. And I think that adds an issue when it comes to, how the Eagles organization was going to handle it. They have a white GM and a Jewish GM and a white Jewish owner. And I think that they are all taking the approach of, let's treat this as an education moment and really cross that bridge. Because I don't think DeSean Jackson hates Jews. I don't think so. Just like I think there's some people that make racial statements out of racial bias, and that doesn't mean that they don't have racial bias and that what they said wasn't racist, but I don't think they hate whoever they're speaking about. I think it's the same thing. I don't think he hates anybody. I think he doesn't understand the context and genuinely understand what he said. And I think the time that you will see that he genuinely understands it, you'll know. That apology will be very different. It'll be said and spoken very different. He still doesn't know. And he needs time. It's not going to change overnight. He's not going to talk to a Jewish person, realize we don't have horns, and, go to, to being rah Jews. I think there's going to be an education lesson there that needs to be had. And I think we all need that once in a while, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I watched Undisputed with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. And Shannon Sharp said he had a conversation with Deshaun Watson. He said that he didn't articulate his point. What he was trying to say, and this is what Shannon Sharp was saying, that he, in the conversation he had with DeSean Jackson, he said that he was trying to make the correlation that if Black folks come together, that we can have some sort of, if we pool our money together, if we can have the resources, we can get ourselves out of our circumstances or the situation. So he was trying to look for almost like a ciphering through, and like you said, it's, if you see Hitler, you probably should just say, no, I shouldn't put the quote up. But he was looking at it as a way, in his way of, without giving any context, of trying to use it as an empowerment.
But if you're still learning, you're still learning what you're reading, don't say you're enlightening your community. You're not. Take time to learn. Take time to read those things and digest it and fact check and digest it again and cross-reference and understand what you're in. He has 4 million Instagram followers. You can't say you don't have a platform at that point. You have a huge platform, and it's for more than scoring touchdowns. I totally agree with that. But you have to verify what you're enlightening your community with.
Yeah. Well, I definitely am going to do some more research on the comments of Louis Farrakhan and his position on the Jewish community, because I honestly, some of the things that you told me, I didn't know. Anytime I listen to Louis Farrakhan's speeches, it's always about Black empowerment. So in that aspect, when I'm listening to his clips or listen to him speak, I've never, when I'm diving deep, or if I do a deeper dive, I guess I'll discover those things. But when it comes to the clips that I see, whether it's on YouTube or when I do my studying, it's always in the context of Black empowerment and enlightenment. So I know he was taken off Twitter. So
he bastardizes. It's the same way that ISIS bastardizes the Islamic religion. It's the same way. It's having really great points and mixing in hateful comments in there that if you took those hateful comments out, there's nothing that he's saying that is wrong. There's nothing wrong with empowerment in the community. It is 100% wrong when you're saying that the Jewish devil is the reason why you're not.
Right. Yeah. Let me go to Anthony. Anthony, unpack it. What is your reaction? Well, and you're someone that identifies as what? So our audience knows.
Well, I'm a Jewish Black man. I keep semi-kosher. I in addition to the high holy days of Yom Tov, I'm proud to be Jewish. I love my faith. It is so complicated to what Brother Gregory was saying. There are so many aspects of Minister Farrakhan that I absolutely love as a Black man. And then, it's like, you have me. And then he'll say something that's anti-Jewish. And I'm like, damn, man, like, what I'm saying? What, that said.
Does that go back to the argument of like taking where somebody could be represented in a good way, but then it's like, oh, they have this bad, because you hear this court, people say it about we talk about Kanye, right? People say it about Kanye, people say it about Cosby, people even say it about R. Kelly, like, oh, you could separate the two. So, that's what, so what are your thoughts on it? I'll let you continue your spot, because that's just
me. We also have to go deep. We have to go very, very deep because Brother Gregory like touched on it. But as a Black Jewish person, I have definitely experienced anti-Black racism in the Jewish community. And it's very, in addition to being very hurtful, it's extremely confusing, because it's like, as Gregory said, like, you're talking about Mickey Schwerner and Andy Goodman, who went down to Mississippi as freedom riders and were murdered in the same car as a Black man in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And that's just a coincidence, but that said, like, there's been massive Black and Jewish solidarity. And then, as Gregory said, as time went on, neoliberalism took over. There was like this weird, unfortunate separation. Like, there were a lot of Ashkenazi Jews, as they're known as, who are white presenting, who got the wages of whiteness that I spoke about earlier. The bottom line is this: is that Ashkenazi Jews make up the smallest percentage of Jewish people in the entire world. The vast majority of Jewish people are brown. They're Mizrahi, they're Sephardim in South America, in North Africa, in Iran, Yemeni Jews, Persian Jews, you know what I'm saying? However, the white supremacy power structure, though, yes, like, you take a country like Israel, where the vast majority of Jewish people there are not Ashkenazim, but yes, the Ashkenazim do control the power, the wealth, and whatnot. And that's not a stereotype. That is just like the bare bone facts. So there's that. There's also the fact that as a proud Black Jew, I am unapologetically down with Palestine. I'm all about Palestinian liberation. And I think that, like, what Israel is doing to Palestinians is unbecoming, and it's not Jewish. It is that is not Jewish. We are people who escaped from Pharaoh, who escaped slavery. And in Deuteronomy, verse 16:20, Hashem, where God says, Sedek, 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 justice, 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 you shall pursue. I am the Lord thy God who freed your asses from Egypt. So like, what's happening is unjust. And there is a massive solidarity with Movement for Black Lives Matter, and the Palestinians. So that also, like, salties things as well. Yeah. This is I know for our audience, I know you're giving historical context as far as, Palestine and Israel. I know that some of them wouldn't understand, and even I'm still trying to figure that out. I will try to got you. Now, that quote, which wasn't even like attributed to a mass murder and a maniac, okay, said that like the original Israelis were African. And that is 100% true. Just stick to that, brother. You know what I'm saying? If you would have said that, like there would be no controversy right now. Some people might have like given you shade, but to Brother Gregory's point, like, I mean, there's one thing about if you're writing an essay and you're quoting Mein Kampf, which is a book that Hitler wrote, in the context of saying like, this is why it was sick, and this is like, you know, why we need to break away from anti-Jewishness, no one like will have the right to call you an anti-Semite. But to just blindly quote Adolf fucking Hitler, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was very hurtful. And I just wanted to go get that brother and be like, yo, what are you doing? Because like, it's like the same way we would feel if a white person was, well, a white person did quote, I believe it was George Wallace, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That was a quote rooted in white supremacy back in the days of the 67, 68 riots.
Didn't Trump tweeted that?
Trump tweeted that, exactly. So I think to what Brother Gregory's point, you know, I also don't accept DeSean's apology because it's not rooted in empathy. Now, Jewish people, like, we are taught to forgive. One of our most high holy holidays is Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement, when it's all about forgiving each other. But when you make an apology, right, the apology has to be intentional, which is why we say when we see Jewish people posting on Facebook, to all the people I offended, I'm sorry. That doesn't cut it, you know, according to Jewish tradition. You got to go face the person that you harmed. If I said something anti-Semitic to Greg, I would knock on his door and beg for him to listen to me and beg for him to forgive me in person. And then I would get credit for doing the work of atonement. Greg, on the other hand, couldn't forgive me, but he has no obligation to ever speak to me again, because the forgiving of the person is for yourself. That's for you to let go of all of that. But I'm with Greg until he exercises empathy and understands that Greg and I felt the same way as Black folk felt when Trump tweeted what he did. You know, that the apology is like for saving face, you know, right now. It's like he had a PR person, like, this is what you have to do first, and then you have to do this, and then you have to do that, because he's got the money to hire a PR person. As Greg said, we got to call this brother in and educate him and let him know how he harmed people, that how he traumatized people. And until that happens, you know, I think he you know, he's just got to go and do the work. You got to do the work. The books are out there. There's plenty, you know, like, go do the work and then come back to the community and say, oh my God, I can't believe that I did that. Please forgive me. You know what I'm saying? It was nonchalant, man, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Well, someone who tried to reach out to him, and I have that clip, and I've actually never seen this, but it's a clip of Julian Edelman, who's the wide receiver of the New England Patriots, actually reached out to DeSean. So if you give me 1 second, I'm going to share that video so that we can all hear what Julian Edelman, and then I'm going to go to Alan to give your thoughts from, I guess I would say, sort of from an outsider's perspective. Here we go.
I've been getting hit up by everyone asking me about this DeSean Jackson post, and I wanted to take some time before I responded because it's a complicated issue, and I wanted to be thoughtful. I wrote down some of my thinking. I've seen DeSean play in his career, make outstanding football plays. We've communicated over social media. I've got nothing but respect for his game. I know he said some ugly things, but I do see an opportunity to have a conversation. I'm proud of my Jewish heritage, and for me, it's not just about religion. It's about community and culture as well. I'm unusual because I didn't identify as Jewish until later in my life. Whenever I encountered hatred, it never really felt like it was aimed at me. It was only after I was part of this community that I learned how destructive hate is. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hatred. It's rooted in ignorance and fear. I remember experiencing a little bit of this hate in 2011 when I was called a kike on the football field. There's no room for anti-Semitism in this world. Even though we're talking about anti-Semitism, I don't want to distract from how important the Black Lives Matter movement is and how we need to stay behind it. I think the Black and Jewish communities have a lot of similarities. One unfortunate similarity is that they are both attacked by the ignorant and the hateful. It's really hard to see the challenges a community can face when you're not part of it. So what we need to do is, we need to listen, we need to learn, we need to act. We need to have those uncomfortable conversations if we're going to have real change. So to that end, DeSean, let's do a deal. How about we go to DC and I take you to the Holocaust Museum, and then you take me to the Museum of African American History and Culture. Afterwards, we grab some burgers and we have those uncomfortable conversations.
All right, so that was wide receiver of the New England Patriots, Julian Edelman. So I want to ask, because I know, because there are people who are upset about Julian Edelman's comments, right? And I actually just heard for the first time. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I'm going to ask Alan, what is your reaction to everything?
I am, I don't really fall under the umbrella of being like a Jewish or a Black Jew. So I am just listening. And
I didn't know Julian Edelman was Jewish until the video. I didn't know that. I think because he said he didn't identify until later in his life, but I didn't know that was something.
So I mean, the first thing that I saw when the quote started circulating is Hitler, and like, to me, just common sense says whatever conversation you're trying to have, you never lead with Hitler. I don't care if the sky is blue and you're quoting, or if strawberries are sweet and you're like, hey man, sorry, I was just reading this book and Hitler said strawberry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not productive. You're automatically putting people who should be on the defense. So you're automatically cutting out any sort of constructive conversation you're trying to have. Not only that, it's just extremely reckless as a person who gets really irritated with Facebook a lot just because people just don't take 2 seconds to fact check. I'm like, how could you? All it did was take me one scroll of Twitter for there to be like, yo, this is not even a real quote. So you're automatically 2 strikes in for something you could have easily Googled. And then, I started doing some more reading, and I've read this before, just as far as the Jewish community feeling a type of way about the stereotypes, as far as, the power structure is concerned. And then once you start to get into the details of, like they were saying, those stereotypes are planted not on accident. Those are planted on purpose to drive a division. So that's something that, okay, maybe those last 2 parts is not something that you may know unless you take, and it doesn't take long. 10 minutes, I was reading into this. And, like I said, it's something that I've heard before. So I think that, like I said, at this point, whatever the full quote was, whatever bigger, broader point that he's trying to make, whatever conversation he's trying to have, at this point, you can't have this conversation now. Because you're not really equipped to historically engage in what you're trying to say at the moment. So now, like they said, now you have to go back, you have to be taught, you have to be spoken to. And then in 6 months, if you want to have a conversation in regards to maybe Black people and unifying and other people assimilating, maybe you're then more educated to have these conversations. But the first thing, like I said, when I saw this is, it doesn't matter what's in between those lines once it starts with Hitler said. You've automatically lost any benefit of the doubt of having a conversation. So, I mean, we'll see if, this conversation is the conversation, or, the trip and the historical thing will happen. I don't necessarily see DeSean Jackson as someone who's being malicious. We see people all the time who just share whatever comes across their feed. Unfortunately, it's a lot more common than it needs to be. So, he does need to be put to the side, and, just it's time for him to learn. It's time for him to learn. So.
Yeah, I definitely want to before we wrap. I'd be remiss if I didn't play devil's advocate for some of the things that we've been seeing on Twitter when it comes to this conflict. So, Greg, I'm gonna fire it to you, and then Anthony at some of these things that I saw on Twitter. People are saying, well, Greg, people are mad at Deshaun Watson for this and saying that his apology is unacceptable. However, and they want to call for his job as you did. But then they said,
I'm sorry, DeSean Jackson, not Watson. I'm sorry.
Jesus. All right, DeSean Jackson. Sorry about that. Deshaun Watson deserves a massive contract. He's doing fine, everybody in Houston. DeSean Jackson. Sorry about that. DeSean Jackson's apology was unacceptable. However, the Philadelphia Eagles has a history of awarding, similar how we're talking about some of these police officers and these attorneys or the Amy Coopers. Well, they almost incentivized racism by giving Riley Cooper, who used the N-word, who said he's going to beat every N-word at a concert, every N-word around here. They incentivized him and gave him an extension after he made those comments. So, and nobody pulled him around and said that they wanted to take him to any museums or anything like that.
That's not true. Michael Vick actually went up to bat for him, and that was one of the big reasons I think.
Okay. Do you think that's a fair comparison, though? Riley Cooper to the DeSean Jackson?
For sure. Actually, I would venture to say it's hard to compare it. I would say Riley Cooper's was a little bit even more derogatory, and it might have come off that way because he was vocalizing it, and it wasn't just like something he was reading. I don't want to compare apples and oranges, but he should have been cut. He wasn't. I'm glad that he had to face his teammates every single fucking day and take the hits at practice he took and have to look people in the eye after saying what he said. I mean, and look, if that's the only, shit he caught for it, I'm glad he got that. I wish he got worse. And I think, again, what he said was less ignorant and more hateful. I could say you can look, and we have this conversation now and say DeSean Jackson doesn't hate Jews. What he said was ignorant. You can't say after watching Riley Cooper's video that he doesn't hate black people. That was hateful. Mm-hmm. That was stuff. He was saying he wants to beat something that's physical. That's physical violence, let alone even using the N-word. So, yeah, I mean, there's no defending that. He shouldn't have gotten an extension. He should have been cut. He wasn't even that good of a player, and that doesn't even come into play at all. But he really wasn't.
Yeah, it's true.
There's no excuses that can be made for that. There really isn't.
I mean, real quick,
Anthony, I had a question for you. Go ahead. And I have a question for you.
Just real quick. I mean, I agree with Brother Gregory. Again, but like, I don't like to play the whataboutism game. You know what I'm saying? Like DeSean Jackson did what DeSean Jackson did. Cooper did what Cooper did. We handle them like in the same way. I can't get into the mind of Eagles ownership. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But like, if we really wanted to get it like deep, like it might not have been as malicious of racism, but there are a lot of white football players that weren't standing with Cap and were even going after brothers who were taking a knee in solidarity with Black lives and who were calling those players out, which to me was very harmful and very hateful. The fact that Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job and Ryan Tanner, or not Tannehill, but there's some white quarterbacks that have jobs right now.
Richie Incognito, who came out with racial, with offensive linemen.
From the Chicago Bears, whatever, and things like that. And that's hurtful. That's way more hurtful to me because that was institutionalized. And that's the thing, like, Stokely Carmichael once said, if you're a white man and you want to lynch me, that's your problem. If you want to lynch me and I let you, then it's my problem. I have no time to go after every individual racist. I am more concerned with going after the institution of white supremacy, the institution of anti-Semitism, the institution of patriarchy, and the institution of colonization.
Well, something else I saw online was like, hey, well, what's up with all of these? Anytime Black people, there's always this. They're trying to make this equivalency to racism, right? And so we heard Julian Edelman kind of allude to it in his remarks, where he said, "I'm not trying to take away from the Black Lives Matter movement," but there are some that feel like DeSean Jackson's comments gave the perfect distraction from the Black Lives Matter movement and trying to make a equivalency to try to almost justify in a way racism, to say, well, see, black people do it too, and they do it to other communities. So I guess racism isn't as bad. And that's how sometimes how the media spins it. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I take the standpoint, and some people disagree with me, but racism is racial prejudice plus power. I believe that Black people can be bigots, but I do not believe that they can be racist because they don't have institutional power. We cannot, we were just talking about what happened in New York with the Coopers, TJ, brother, young Ginger Ale. We cannot call up the cops and say there is a white person having a barbecue and I feel threatened. Please come out right now. We don't have the power to do that. So but we can be bigots. In some cases, and it hurts my heart to say this, yes, Minister Farrakhan makes a lot of bigoted statements and harmful statements, but he's not a racist because he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. Like, he has
institutionalized power. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's a false equivalency. But to what Brother Gregory said and earlier is that it's the platform of hate that has to be dismantled and decapitated, because that's what comes from all of us, whether it's racism, anti-Semitism, sexism, misogyny, and whatnot. It's all from the same platform of hate. And as Gregory also said, it's the white supremacists trying to divide people. I mean, because they when we come together, they know it's over for them. I was just thinking of another example, and it's slipping my mind right now. But when you just you do have a responsibility to really check your reposts. What you have to understand is this social media, it is a lot of power in your hands. When you have what you say, Greg, 4 million followers. When you transmit something, you know what I'm saying? That's you got to be very, very careful. And what it does remind me of, and I'm sorry for getting too wonky, but back in 2008. When Obama first became president, he appointed a man named Tom Vilsack to be the Secretary of Agriculture. You may remember this controversy. There was a Black woman whose statements were taken out of context by a right-wing outfit that took clips of her video basically saying that she was going to use her power to screw over white farmers. And they only played that, and then they fired her. But then when they got down to it and played the full video, right, it turned out that this right-wing lunatic basically did that on purpose. Tom Vilsack had to apologize, tried to rehire her. So we've got to be very, very careful with how we're using, the information and making sure we've got to do our due diligence. And that was what I agree with Gregory. He doesn't hate Jewish people. He was just ignorant. You know what I'm saying? He was just really, really ignorant. But that doesn't excuse the harm that he caused. It doesn't excuse the harm that he caused. And the last thing I want to say is that I got a little, as we like to say, Greg knows this word, verklempt, when I heard what Edelman was saying. That's beautiful. You come to the Holocaust Museum. That's what I'm talking about.
He got some heat because people are saying, well, he just was in LA for vandalism, getting arrested, and the things that he did. I don't know if I believe they said the charges were either dropped or he didn't get as in trouble. Well, the things that he did, Black people get killed for less.
And that's not Edelman's
so that's
fault.
a part of
that's
that's a part of his privilege. That's a part of white. That's a part of white supremacy as well.
Right.
So is there? So where do we go in this culture where it's people can't talk to? It's you want to hop in and talk, but it's everybody's doing the Carfax. Everybody's checking your record on things before you can even hop in and have a conversation. So at what point, and I'm because I know we got to do around more of the story. At what point, and I'm gonna just ask you all, and maybe you could do this in your remarks to more of the story. At what point do we stop? Do we deal with situations individually rather than looking at, well, if Greg wants to comment on this, let me check Greg's racism report. Let me check his, sexism report. Let me check Alan's, LGBTQ, if he's an ally, whatever. It's coming to that in our culture. Is it not, fellas?
Yeah, I think that, and this has been kind of happening for a while, and I personally wish it wouldn't, because I do feel like. And this is a broader conversation that we'll have, I'm sure, at another time, that people do specifically spew really bad vitriol to people who may benefit from the system. unknowingly or just by just by happen to, as opposed to the system itself. I think that unfortunately it's not going to be one blanket thing. I think if you're a person who's trying to learn, if you're a person who is trying to be better, you have to understand that that journey is for you and it's not for your audience. And then you have to only embrace the people that is going to assist you in that journey. So at that point, unfortunately, you are going to have to ignore the whole left side of the field that wants your head. If the true goal is progress, you're just going to have to focus on the people who will embrace you, because you have to understand that everybody's forgiveness level and morality is not the same. But like I said, if you're truly doing it for yourself, then those people, you're going to have to be like, all right, we've come to an understanding that you and I are not going to be good because of your conviction. That's cool, but I still have work to do. So I am going to go to those people who is going to help me in this journey, and then just focus on that.
Yeah. Look, so every week we have a segment on our show called Moral of the Story, where we go around the horn and it gives everybody an opportunity to summarize it, put a bow on it, of what we've talked about in our discussions. So I'm gonna go around the horn. I'm gonna start with Alan. Alan's a veteran, so he'll lead the way. Alan, what's your moral of the story, man?
Moral of the story, I gotta start off with wash your face, wash your hands, and put some sanitizer on as usual. But also, for the moral story of this week is I want everyone to know that justice looks different for everybody. And you cannot judge what someone's justice, what they feel in their heart is justice to them, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to be content with the repercussions of who hurt them is dealing with. Don't take on the burdens of everybody else. So just remember, justice looks different to everyone else, and the most important person is the person who has to deal with it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And then Jess say she had to run. She was joining us via phone, but she said her moral of the story is prayers for Naya, and we do not need to cancel everyone who doesn't have the same views as us. And I think that's an important lesson. Anthony, what's your moral of the story?
Yeah, I'm gonna give my moral, brother, and then I've got to run myself for domestic duties. But building off of what young Ginger Ale said and what Sister Jess said, don't be too woke to win. And that's what was going on with brother Edelman. Like sometimes on the so-called left, we try to be so woke that we're not building anything. Cancel culture. There's not going to be anything left if we keep on that path. Brother Edelman, regardless of what happened in LA, made a beautiful, beautiful gesture and a beautiful, beautiful offer. When we're too woke to win, everybody loses. Got you, brother. And where can they find you on social media, brother? Anthony Rogers-Wright on Facebook. They can also find me on Black Prog on Twitter, BLACPROG. And other than that, just check Google for articles and whatnot. And brother, I just want to say real quick before I bounce, my heart is with you. I know what's going on in Florida. Please stay safe, TJ. Your voice is so important, and like I need you around, brother, for a long time, because who am I going to have to vent to? Absolutely, man. I'm gonna get going, but I love all of you. Thank you, Greg. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, young Ginger. All right. Appreciate you, bro. Greg Eisenberg, my guy. What's your moral of the story?
My moral of the story is get out of your fucking bubble, right? Like all of us live in our own little bubbles, yet all of us come from different backgrounds, religions, colors, creeds, right? But we all eat different but weird shit. We all have weird songs. We all got weird prayers. We all got weird traditions. We need to learn about each other. You need to invite each other to your homes, show people your culture, learn about theirs, be proud of who you are and what your traditions are so people understand the importance of it, but then learn about theirs and understand that importance too. And we're all humans. We all have to stop arguing over shit that we're letting bring us down and stop letting us move forward. And we all got to work together on that. And that's what I really feel like the moral of the story is, just education and learn and get outside your bubble.
Word. And where can they find you on social media, Greg, if they want to get in contact with you?
Facebook or Instagram, but hit me up there, shoot me a message. I try not to be too active on social media, and let's get together and have a real conversation once all this crazy COVID stuff passes.
Absolutely. And my moral of the story is, I watched the Dave Chappelle comedy special, and he said a term that really resonated with me. And I think, in this modern day civil rights movement, it's permeating with me more and more. And that's the idea of an imperfect ally. And I think, you know, I used to believe that, oh, well, we don't have any allies. And I know that has been said, especially within our community, because it always seems like things don't, you know, it's always the trickle down effect when it comes to African Americans, that, okay, we cape for everybody else, and then we just get the residuals from you know, the trickle down resources from everybody else. And we really don't have any allies. I don't think it's necessarily about us not having allies. I just think that we are so hypersensitive to imperfect allies. The minute that I want to say something about a woman's issue, then it's like, oh, well, let's check his background. The minute somebody else wants to say something about LGBTQ plus, it's like everybody, we're so, or African American issues, or if the Asian community or India or the Jewish community says something, everybody is so hypersensitive to cancel everybody. We're never going to have like those days of, like, you know, of people having these opinions or being squeaky clean in order for them to raise a voice to your cause. Those days are over. Social media, people are saying things all the time. There are kids right now who are saying things on their social media that they're going to regret 10 years from now, right? And so we need to give a little grace and opportunities to have that understanding that folks can be an ally and lend a voice to our cause and assist in the education. However, they may not come in the form that we want to initially accept. So we have to be open to imperfect allies in order for us to continue to grow, not only in our communities, but grow as people and individuals, and maximize what I believe is our potential in humanity. So I appreciate all of you all for being here. Of course, Alan, you know, happy belated birthday. I feel terrible about that. And I'm sorry about that, because, you know, your friendship and who you are to me means a lot. And so, in all the hustle and bustle of things that's going on in my life down here, that's something that I know you don't think it's a big deal, but it's a big deal to me. So that's something that I need to, you know, I definitely apologize for that. Greg, I appreciate you educating me, man. I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing your perspective, because there are certain things, like when I look at Louis Farrakhan, I don't see it from your perspective, but I will. You have my word that I will continue to look into things more, because I've always looked at it from the Black empowerment perspective. But if there's a pocket of somebody that is, his rhetoric is hurting another community, I also need to look at that as well and be responsible, because I did share a lot of his videos recently, because he spoke on the 4th, and I saw some of his clips that were coming up, but the clips that I shared were about Black empowerment and not necessarily about his comments towards the Jewish community. So I got to do a deeper dive into that, and I definitely will. But I definitely appreciate you taking the time on our platform to educate and to express your experience, you know, from the Jewish community's perspective, man. I think that's real big. And Anthony as well for coming on and sharing his perspective as well.
No, I appreciate you having this discussion and having this platform to begin with. I think you're doing great stuff having these conversations, and happy to be here and have these conversations anytime.
Yes,
hopefully I'll have your stuff in the future.
Absolutely. So for Alan, for Jesse, for Anthony Rogers-Wright, for Gregory Eisenberg, this is the Soapboxx Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Soapboxx Podcast with 2X. This is a good conversation. I look forward to having more conversations like it, and getting into those spaces. And then we do need to have, when we get into the deeper dive conversations about Israel, Palestine, and really hashing out what's going on with there, so we can get more into international politics as well. So appreciate y'all. This is the Soapboxx Podcast. Peace.